Welcome to the Steep Dive. Today we're tackling a really complex and often misunderstood topic, borderline personality disorder, or BPD.
Yeah, it's definitely one that carries a lot of stigma.
It really does. So we've pulled together a collection of sources, info from the NHS on potential causes, some practical tools from the DBT skills training handouts and worksheets,
That's a great resource.
and also some personal insights from articles on PMC and NAMI looking at recovery and, family environments.
Right.
Our mission really is to weave these different threads together, try and give you a much clearer, maybe more useful understanding of BPD.
Exactly. And looking at them together is, I think, powerful.
Mm-hmm.
You get different angles, right?
Mm-hmm.
The NHS gives that sort of medical perspective,
Mm.
biology.
Mm.
The DBT manual offers concrete strategies, like things you can do.
Practical stuff.
Yeah. And then you have these crucial real-world experiences showing what recovery can actually look like. Plus
Yeah.
the family angle from PMC reminds us BPD isn't, in a vacuum.
Okay, so let's start with the causes, maybe unpack that NHS info first. It points to genetics,
Right, it mentions BPD can sort of run in families.
suggesting maybe a predisposition, like an inherited tendency.
Yeah, that seems to be the idea. But it's not like a simple this gene causes BPD situation. It's probably more complex.
More like certain genes might increase vulnerability.
Exactly. Makes you more susceptible if you encounter other risk factors later on.
The NHS also talks about brain chemistry, neurotransmitters, serotonin's mentioned,
Big one for mood regulation, yeah.
and specific brain regions too. The amygdala,
Your emotion center, basically.
the hippocampus for behavior and self-control,
And learning.
and the orbitofrontal cortex,
Yeah.
planning decisions.
Wait, the idea is these areas might function a bit differently.
And crucially, it says early upbringing can actually affect how these brain areas develop.
Yes, that's key. So you might have a biological predisposition, but your environment, your early experiences, they can significantly influence how those brain parts wire up and function.
Which then impacts mood regulation, relationships. It all connects.
It really does. Biology and environment interacting.
Okay, so with those potential biological factors and environment playing a role, it kind of sets the stage for why something like dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, might work.
Because it focuses on managing those emotional responses and interactions.
Exactly. Our DBT manual source, it introduces it as therapy that started with highly suicidal adults.
That's right. That was Marshall Linehan's initial focus.
Yeah.
But research now shows it's effective for a much wider range. BPD, yes, but also eating disorders, depression.
Substance use, too.
Yeah, quite a range.
What I found really interesting in the preface was the point that you don't actually need a diagnosis to benefit from these skills.
That's huge. It really broadens the perspective, doesn't it?
Totally. It makes you think these could be useful for, well, anyone. Friends, family members dealing with someone struggling.
Even in the workplace, maybe. Better team dynamics, like the author suggests.
Yeah. The author even says they use the skills themselves. It makes them feel like practical tools for just living.
Makes you wonder if these are fundamental skills we all could have used earlier,
Right. Like, weren't we supposed to learn this stuff somewhere?
Maybe. The preface does mention these skills weren't just invented from scratch.
Oh, yeah. Where did they come from?
Various places, different psychological theories, therapeutic approaches,
Mm-hmm.
they've been developed and refined over quite some time.
So it's a toolkit built from lots of different wisdom.
And that's a good way to put it. It reflects the complexity of, well, being human.
Okay, let's look at the structure then. How is DBT skills training actually set up? The manual has 5 main parts.
Yep. General skills first, then the 4 big modules. Mindfulness,
Okay.
interpersonal effectiveness,
Right.
emotion regulation, and distress tolerance.
And each one has handouts explaining things and worksheets for practice.
Exactly. It's very hands-on. You learn the concept, then you practice it. That's key to DBT. It's about building new habits, new ways of responding.
Active learning. Okay, so within general skills, there's handout 1A. It talks about responding to pain.
Yeah, it lays out basically 4 options when you're facing something difficult. You can solve the problem.
It's possible.
Right. Or you can feel better about the problem, change your emotional response.
Okay.
Or you can learn to tolerate the problem, accept it for now.
And the 4th.
Stay miserable.
Ah.
And the point is, DBT skills help with the first 3. They give you ways to not choose option 4.
Gives you agency, moves you away from feeling passive or stuck.
Precisely. Then there's the biosocial theory in handout 5. This is pretty central to understanding BPD from a DBT perspective.
What does it say? It tries to explain the difficulties with emotion and action control.
Yeah. It talks about two sides. First, a biological vulnerability to emotions. Things like being highly sensitive.
Feeling things intensely.
Intensely, frequently, emotions ramping up quickly and lasting a long time. And also biological impulsivity, trouble resisting urges, acting without thinking.
Okay, so that's the bio part.
Right. And the social part is the environment, specifically an invalidating social environment.
What does that mean? Invalidating.
It's where your emotional experiences are consistently dismissed, punished, or told they're wrong.
Like people saying you're overreacting or just get over it.
Exactly, those kinds of things. Or ignoring your reactions.
Mhm.
The handout notes, it often comes from people who mean well but just don't know how to respond. Or they're scared.
Or sometimes it's just a poor fit. The person and their environment don't quite mesh.
That too. And the theory suggests this combination, the biological vulnerability plus the invalidating environment, makes it incredibly hard to learn how to regulate emotions effectively.
Like you never learn to trust your own feelings or figure out how to manage them.
Exactly. If you're constantly told what you feel is wrong or invalid, how do you learn to navigate your inner world?
Makes sense. So to understand how specific problem behaviors happen, DBT uses chain analysis. Handout 7.
Yes, chain analysis is a really powerful tool. It's like detective work on your own behavior.
How does it work?
You break down an incident step by step. Describe the problem behavior itself very specifically.
Yeah.
Then identify the prompting event, what set things off.
The trigger.
Right. And importantly, what vulnerability factors were present. Like, were you tired, stressed, sick? The example mentions a boyfriend being away.
Ah, okay. Things that made you more susceptible before the trigger.
Exactly. Then you detail the chain of events, thoughts, feelings, body sensations, other actions that link the trigger to the problem behavior, minute by minute sometimes.
Oh, really detailed?
Super detailed. Then you look at the consequences, both short and long term.
Okay.
And finally, the crucial part, figuring out skillful behaviors you could have used instead, planning how to prevent it next time, and repairing any damage done.
It sounds like it really helped you see the pattern and find places to intervene.
That's exactly the goal, to move from feeling overwhelmed and out of control to understanding the sequence and seeing where you can make different choices.
Okay, let's move into the core skills modules. First up, mindfulness.
Right. Mindfulness is defined as intentionally focusing on the present moment, without judgment, without getting attached.
So the opposite of being on autopilot.
Pretty much. Being awake and aware. There are the what skills.
Observing, describing, participating.
Yep, from handout 4. Observing is just noticing, using your senses. The manual gives examples like imagining a serene lake or a spiral staircase inside you.
Focusing attention.
Right, or just noticing smells, tastes, touch. Describing is putting words on that experience, but factually, no judgment.
Just, I feel tension in my shoulders, not my shoulders feel awful.
Exactly. And participating is throwing yourself fully into the current activity, being completely present.
Okay, those are the what skills. What about the how skills from handout 5?
Those guide how you practice the what skills. Non-judgmentalness, seeing things as they are without labeling good or bad.
Letting go of the evaluation.
One mindfulness focusing on one thing at a time, bringing your attention back when it wanders.
Harder than it sounds.
Oh, definitely. And effectiveness, doing what works to achieve your goals in the situation, not letting emotions derail you.
Being skillful, basically.
Yeah. And central to all this in DBT mindfulness is the concept of wise mind.
Wise mind, handout 3. What is that exactly?
It's described as the synthesis, the integration of reason mind and emotion mind.
So logic and feelings combined.
Kind of the overlap, the sweet spot where both are acknowledged and integrated. It's that deep intuitive knowing.
That gut feeling sometimes. But informed.
Exactly. Not just raw emotion, not just cold logic, but the wisdom that comes from accessing both. The manual describes it as involving direct experience, a sense of unity, no judgment, inner peace.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, a sense of knowing, connectedness, spaciousness, and there are ways to practice accessing it.
Like what?
Paying attention during routine stuff, focusing on just this one moment, practicing willingness. There's even a specific 3-minute exercise focused on thoughts, feelings, and acceptance.
Tools to help you find that wise mind state more often.
That's the idea. So you can draw on it when things get tough.
Okay, next module. Interpersonal effectiveness. This sounds crucial for relationships.
Absolutely. It's about navigating interactions skillfully. 3 main goals here. Getting your needs met,
Objective effectiveness.
Maintaining relationship.
Relationship effectiveness.
And keeping your self-respect.
Self-respect effectiveness. Handout 3 mentions those acronyms. Dear Man.
Right. Dear Man helps you structure asking for something or saying no effectively.
Describe, express, assert, reinforce, mindful, appear confident, negotiate.
You got it. Then Give skills focus on keeping the relationship positive while you interact.
Gentle, interested, validate, easy manner.
Yep. And Fast skills help you maintain your self-respect.
Fair. No. Apologies. Unnecessary ones. Stick to values. Truthful.
Exactly.
Huh.
But Handout 2 also points out what gets in the way, right? Why is this stuff sometimes hard?
Yeah, it mentions lack of skills.
Yeah.
Just not knowing how.
Or not being sure what you actually want or need in this situation.
Right. Or just emotions getting too intense and hijacking things.
Definitely. So a big part is clarifying your priorities before you go into an interaction. What's most important right now? The goal, the relationship, your self-respect. Sometimes you have to choose.
Balancing act. Okay, next up, emotion regulation. This feels like a really core one.
It really is. The goal here is to understand your emotions and, when necessary, change them if they aren't helpful or don't fit the situation.
So how do you do that?
Well, first step is identifying and naming emotions. Just knowing what you're feeling
Sounds simple, but maybe isn't always.
can be tricky. Then, checking the facts. Does my emotion and its intensity actually fit the reality of the situation?
Like, is this level of fear justified by the actual threat?
Exactly. And if the emotion doesn't fit the facts or if acting on its urge would be ineffective, you might use opposite action.
Opposite action, doing the opposite of what the emotion makes you want to do. Handouts 10 and 11 have examples.
Yeah. So if fear makes you want to avoid, the opposite action is to approach, non-defensively. If anger makes you want to attack, opposite action is gentle avoidance or being kind.
Sadness makes you withdraw. Opposite is get active.
Shame makes you hide. Opposite is share appropriately. Guilt about hurting someone. Opposite is repair and then let it go. It's about breaking the emotion's unhelpful pattern.
That sounds really powerful, but probably difficult to do in the moment.
It takes practice, for sure. The module also stresses accumulating positive emotions, both short-term pleasant events.
Like doing something nice for yourself each day.
Yeah. And importantly, long-term building a life worth living, as DBT calls it.
How do you do that?
A lot of it involves the please skills.
Yeah.
From handouts 14, 15, 19. Taking care of your physical self.
PLEASE. Treating physical illness.
Balancing eating.
Avoiding mood-altering substances.
Balancing sleep.
Getting exercise. The basics, but crucial for emotional stability.
Absolutely foundational. Plus building mastery, doing things that make you feel competent. And coping ahead, planning for difficult situations you know are coming.
It's a really comprehensive approach to managing emotions.
It aims to be. It's not about not feeling, but about feeling and managing effectively.
Okay, final core module, distress tolerance. What's this one about?
This is for crisis survival. When you're in intense emotional pain and you can't make things better right now, these skills help you get through it without making things worse.
Okay, like impulse control in a crisis. What are the skills?
There's the SWP skill first. Stop. Don't react. Take a step back. Observe what's happening inside and out. Proceed mindfully.
Like a pause button.
Yeah, exactly. Then the tip skills are for changing your body chemistry quickly when distress is overwhelming. Handouts 5 and 6.
TIP, temperature.
Yeah, splashing cold water on your face, holding ice. It triggers the dive reflex, slows heart rate.
Intense exercise.
Burn off that physical energy. Paced breathing.
Slowing things down.
And paired muscle relaxation. Tensing and releasing muscles. These are quick physical interventions.
What else? Distraction techniques.
Yes, the ACCPS acronym in Handout 7. Distracting with activities, contributing to others, comparisons, used carefully, generating different emotions, pushing away the situation temporarily, focusing on other thoughts, engaging in tense sensations.
Lots of options there for shifting focus.
And self-soothing, using the 5 senses: vision, hearing, smell, taste, touch. Handout 8 has ideas. Think comforting sights, sounds, smells.
Things that feel calming or grounding.
Precisely. Then there are the acceptance-based skills. Willingness.
Doing what's needed, even if it's hard or unpleasant.
Yeah, participating fully in reality as it is, which leads to radical acceptance, Handout 14.
Accepting reality completely without fighting it, even if it's painful.
Yes. It doesn't mean liking it or approving of it. It means acknowledging this is what's happening so you can then figure out how to respond effectively rather than getting stuck fighting what is.
That sounds incredibly difficult, but necessary sometimes.
It's a core skill. And finally, there's specific skills mentioned for when the crisis involves addiction, like planning for dialectical abstinence and reinforcing non-addictive behaviors. Handouts 16 and 17.
So a really wide range of tools for getting through tough times.
Definitely. But, hearing the skills listed is one thing. Hearing how someone actually uses them in recovery, that's powerful. The NMI blog excerpt gives us that.
Yeah, that personal account. What stood out to you there?
Well, the turning point described, making that real commitment to recovery, deciding to address the behaviors head on.
And the honesty about how hard it was, losing friends.
Right, but also gaining a deeper understanding of themselves and others, learning healthier ways to express emotions.
I was struck by the conscious decision to practice gratitude and honesty, and how that actually led to rebuilding connections.
Yeah, that's huge. It shows the active work involved. And acknowledging that it's ongoing. Challenges still come up, occasional overwhelm or depression.
But celebrating the progress, a year without suicide attempts or self-harm,
Uh,
that's a massive achievement.
Absolutely. It really underscores being in tune with emotions, feeling them, expressing them healthily.
And setting boundaries for inner peace. That phrase really resonated.
Viewing mental health as that lifelong journey, continuous growth, it beautifully illustrates how these DBT principles can translate into real change.
The self-awareness, the healthier expression, the boundaries, it maps right onto the skills we talked about.
It really does.
And then, just briefly, that PMC article mentioning the families.
Yeah, revisiting the psychological environment. It just highlights that the family system, the social context, it matters. Understanding those dynamics is part of the picture, even if we didn't get details from that source.
Right. BPD doesn't happen in isolation. The environment plays a role in development and management.
For sure.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, what are the main takeaways for you?
Well, I think it's clear BPD is complex. There's likely this interplay of biological factors, brain differences, genetics perhaps.
And environmental factors, that invalidation piece seems really important.
Hugely important. But the hopeful part is that approaches like DBT offer a really comprehensive practical toolkit. Skills for mindfulness, for handling relationships better, for regulating those intense emotions, and tolerating distress.
And the NAMI story, it shows recovery is genuinely possible.
Absolutely. It takes commitment, self-awareness, learning new ways to cope, but it's achievable. And it's an ongoing journey needing self-compassion and those healthy boundaries.
That's a great summary. It really leads me to a final thought, though.
Oh, yeah.
If understanding and validating emotional experiences, even the really intense ones, is so critical for recovery from BPD, well, how could we, maybe as a society, create more validating environments?
Interesting. Not just for people with BPD, but for everyone.
Yeah. For anyone navigating complex emotions, what small shifts could we all make in how we interact, how we listen, to foster more understanding and support?
That's a really important question to sit with. How can we be more validating in our daily lives? What would that look like?
Something to ponder. So if you listening or someone you know is interested in learning more about BPD or DBT, we really encourage you to check out the resources we touched on.
Yeah, the NHS website has good info. Look into books on DBT skills like the one we mentioned, and organizations like NAMI are great resources too.
Exploring those can definitely provide more information and support. We hope this exploration of, the brain, behavior, and therapy has been helpful for you.